So, are you curious?
Welcome to the Curiosity Codex. I am your ardent enthusiast, Kyle Olson. You think we need one more? You think we need one more? All right, we'll get one more. The time has come to assemble the crew. Mandy Fabian takes us through the process of picking her elite team to make her movie, from assistant director to wardrobe, casting, sound, and the rest. And the most important question, how are you going to feed them all?
Chapter 12. Make it a playground.
All right, so we got the money.
Mm-hmm.
We have the location.
Yep.
We got the cast.
Yeah.
So you're everything's going together, but obviously it's going to take more than just you and a camera to do this. so tell me about everybody you put together, like your dream team that you put to help with that. It's like where does it? I guess who do you start with?
Oh,
and then how do you pick?
The first person that, as a director, that you have to find is your DP, your director of photography. So. What we did is I had collected some people that I had followed. So when I went to these short film festivals or various kinds of festivals, when I saw somebody with a really cool aesthetic or that handles material in the way that, like, looking for that balance of, they know what to, it feels funny. And it looks really cool, but the way that it looks is not superseding the content, right? So it's
okay. It's not flashy.
Yeah, because sometimes you see DPs have these really cool shots and stuff, but it's like now I'm paying more attention to how it's shot than I am the character in the stories, right? So whenever people did something that's brutally, graciously, amazingly funny, but also cool looking, those are the people that I would put on a little list on my phone, right? Just kind of track their careers and follow them and stuff. So, and I'd worked with a bunch of DPs, and, so I had people that I was like, I really, I like the way they, so you start asking around people that you've worked with, you see who's available. And then also I met with some other people that my agents they knew some people, right? So they sent me people from their agency too. And I ended up working with one of the women who was at my agency. And it was really interesting. Like so I met with all of them on Zoom because it was still,
COVID times. Yeah.
And maybe you would anyway, I don't know. But I really didn't know what I was doing. I learned through the process of interviewing several DPs because I really was like, how do you, it's like, I didn't know, I've interviewed directors to direct something that I've written like one time in my life. And I knew what impressed me. I knew what made us hire the guy that we hired. And that was that he came in and he just like acted like he had the job. I mean, he already was like problem solving and talking about casting and where he would shoot it and how he would shoot it and, people that he knew in that area. It was like, he just kind of, there was no like, do you want to hire me? It was like, and when I do this job, blah, blah, blah. I mean, and I don't know how he did it. It was this magic thing. He cast a spell on us that was like, well, obviously he's the guy. And he had a great resume to back him up.
And it worked.
It did.
He wasn't. Okay, so he wasn't just blowing smoke. Like, he delivered on all the things that
No, the movie never got made.
Okay.
That was,
these things happen.
But in terms of getting the job, he was going to be the guy who did it.
So when you're going to meet these people, then have you done homework on their stuff? Like, have you actually, you're going to meet the person, you've actually gone and looked at some of their things to get an idea of what their eye is
Usually
like?
they have a reel. You watch their reels. With the case of the woman who I ended up working with, she had 2 features and a short, and I watched all of it. And the thing that caught me about her, and this was interesting, there were different needs for this thing because I needed to have a rapport with them. I needed someone who was comfortable camping in the woods. And while we were in cottage, like we had cabins. It wasn't like I wasn't asking anybody to sleep on the ground, but I needed someone who liked camping, who liked the idea of being in the woods for a couple weeks. I needed someone who was good with a first-time feature director, right? So I wasn't like when I said in the beginning, I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, because I didn't know the right questions to ask. But then, so I figured out what comps sort of I felt like I wanted. I talked about the way Jean-Marc Vallée shot his stuff, which I really like the look and feel of that. It's very non-invasive. He shoots with practical lights. He started off doing, he's shooting kids with like autism. He did this documentary on kids with autism, and like you can't block that. You have to sort of catch that as it goes. So he learned the style of shooting that he really likes, where he creates a space where the actors are king, right? And queen, respectively. That he wants to be able to light a space and make it a playground so that the actor can be as organic and get in the flow, and we can stay in that flow. And I had enough experience on multicam sets and in theater that there is a certain, not that, look, every professional actor should be able to keep up their energy, but with comedy, if you are constantly having to stop and start and tweak lights and adjust and tweak, nobody can get into that flow. Like on my second short film, I remember like there was only one moment where like, I was like, ugh, we have to stop tweaking the lights. And then they got into the flow and I was like, that's what it is. They need that. Let's do it. And then you say cut and everybody busts out laughing. And then we do it again and they, come up with something different. And then we say cut and everybody bursts out laughing. Like it needs to have that feel of a fun playground. So I wanted to incorporate that Jean-Marc Vallée sort of, let's make it feel very real and very present, and let's prioritize the actor's experience for this. So that was something I knew. And then, like I said, I had looks of like, I loved Captain Fantastic. I loved the way that movie, it looked so beautiful and it was in nature, but it felt grounded. It didn't, it was very grounded, but beautiful. So it wasn't like gritty, ugly. It was just shy of coffee commercial, beautiful, really accentuating the beauty of nature while also feeling very real. Does that make sense?
So would you go out and sort of like look at movies to try and find the look that you wanted? Or was it more like you're watching movies anyways and you go, that's the kind of thing, and you'd sort of make a note?
The thing that got me turned on to Jean-Marc Vallée first was Wild. I watched that movie and I was like, the look and feel of that, I love. So through the years, as I watch movies, I would write down I have a notepad on my phone, whatever, and I would write down the titles of things that I was like, I love the way that looked and felt. So that when I go to do a project, I can go back and look at that and go, what was it about that movie that made me feel this, right? And the way that they handled Wild, the nature shots and just the tone of it, I love the way it felt. So that was another visual reference. And then what happened was interesting is most of the DPs, well, the ones that ended up being in the running for the job, like showed up with a lookbook.
Oh,
so they also,
and they would like on Zoom, they would just hold it up and then sort of
or share the screen and show me what they had put. They would put together with something
like a slideshow.
Yeah, having read the script. They were like, here's what visual images came to my mind. Here's how I would shoot the story. Here's how I would prioritize the story. Or they would talk about, the ones that really impressed me the most were the ones that talked about the story. Like, what's the best way to get in there? How do you want the audience to feel? Whose story is it? I would try to shoot like this to get it from her perspective and not, and that was I learned a lot from listening to all these people talk. They all had different ideas that were great, because they're DBs. They have a totally different perspective on things.
Did you find that you could answer all the questions they asked for you, or were you sort of like, oh, I hadn't thought about that, and you have to be like, oh, that's interesting. Let me babble for a minute while I think of the answer to that.
You know what's so great? I have gotten to a point now where I understand it's not a weakness to not know something right away. That I no longer feel like I have to BS. If I don't know or if I haven't
Nice.
thought of something, that's only flattering to the person who I'm working with, right? Like, thank you for that. I hadn't considered that, and I will think about that. You know? I never really felt like I got caught with my pants down, because also I was very open about the fact that this was my first feature, but I've shot a lot of things. It's just that this was way more, if anything, because I was doing shorts and we were shooting on the weekend. It was a couple days at a time and we're scrapping things together. This being something that I had written, that I got to cast, and that I got to, like, you know, really go all out, you know, go big or go home. I really had to push myself harder to make it more artistic and more, you know, personal, and really, really think things through, because I knew I was going to be tired, and, you know, it's a really intense experience. So I definitely also wanted somebody who had worked with first-time feature directors. I think I said that. That was a big thing for me. And then some of the DPs had in their lookbook some of the visual samples that I had already written down that were ideas,
nice.
which was really nice, right? It was
Yeah.
really down to 2 people, and they were both great. God, they were both great, and they both had samples in the lookbook. And then ultimately, you know, I chose Sev because we had a really nice rapport in the meeting. It was an odd choice because she had not really done comedy, but she had a great sense of humor, and the truth is, her movies were so intimate. What I liked about them is she had worked with very, very low budget. And that was an obstacle that I felt in a lot of meetings, where DPs are always like, well, you know, when you say no lighting, that's not really a thing, right? Like, we're going to, right? You know, and they were very sort of resistant to this idea of, like, if I gave you, you know, a roll of masking tape and some spit, could you make this movie with me, right? If we shot it on, you know, on a Sony A7S, like, could you make this movie with me? And I wanted, because we really didn't know how this was going to unfold, I wanted somebody who's like, I love this story. I'm a creative, you know, goddess, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get the best version of it, while also fighting for the best possible option. And she had that nice balance. And, you know, she had movies, like, her movies have been in Toronto and Sundance, and, like, I mean, she's one of the first female DPs from Kosovo. And it was our rapport, and it was the way she talked about the story. I really felt like I am the director, I am the protector of the story, I am the keeper of the story. And so the fact that she was so touched by it, she was very moved by it. She, as a feminist, she was really into this idea of, she really got the suffering, the internal struggle that our main character's having. Even though it's a comedy, she got the dramatic side of it as well. And this movie has both. So there was something about that I really liked. And so she ended up being my partner. And it turned out great. She was very gung-ho like me. Like, what I liked about her was, there's all these things when you know, there's always the fantasy of, like, we're going to do a movie. And then there's, you know, even with actors, you know, you're negotiating, and then suddenly, like, you're not hearing back from an actor's lawyer or manager or whatever, because they're like, no, they want to make sure that you're going to have fresh brewed coffee for them in the morning. And you're like, wait, what? You forget that it's a business, and, you know. But yeah. I could feel from her that she was very like, listen, you know, it's you and I, we're a team. Like, there was not going to be any kind of, well, I don't do this and I don't do that. She was like, I'm in it to win it. I'm yours. Like, we could start working tomorrow. And that's what we did. And it was very comforting and great. And she wanted to go look at the location multiple times. Like, I was even lazier than her as the director. I'm like, it'll be fine. She's like, nope, you and I are going to get...
She's already planning out shots.
Yes.
Like, we can shoot this way. We can cover this.
We did so much prep. And that was actually, that was the other thing too. She's like, I am an over preparer. And so that's what you want. That was absolutely what I wanted, because also I needed to learn from her, right? And that was great. So she and I drove up to that location, even though it was 2.5 hours out of town. We would sometimes go up and back in the same day, and
You drive together?
Yeah. We stepped it out. We looked at all the possibilities. We had the camera out.
Did you get a road mix that you could listen to on the way?
No, we jabbered. We just talked.
You got work to do. You're planning out the.
I felt very lucky that we got along as well as we did. It was.
Yeah.
She really did feel like an instant friend. We got into it.
That's
certainly
great.
on set. There were times we can talk about that later, but. But choosing her, those were all the factors of interviewing her. It was all those things, really. It was like I got something from her material that I thought, that's what this movie needs. It needs to feel intimate. It needs to feel like you're part of this group. You need to be right in there, and it needs to be focused on the actor's performance.
Okay, so you get her, you lock her down. Mm-hmm. Then who's next then?
I'm trying to think what the big. You want to, well, for this movie.
I mean, like in your list of priorities.
Yeah.
I mean, like obviously because time and COVID and weirdness, you get who you get at the time you can get them. But like in your list of priorities, then after DP, what's next?
After DP, the good news about a DP is usually they know people, like they have their crew that they work with.
Right.
That was another thing too. Every DP, because this is an ultra low budget film, I needed to know that they had crew that they loved, trusted, respected their work, who also knew that this was not going to be the job that you do for a big paycheck, right? Because we're managing a budget. So like that was another important factor. And she was an AFI grad, and she had all these AFI grad crew members. So she's the one who handled like the gaffer and the grip and all of the electric guys. And she had a whole group of people that she had worked with before, that she went to school with, that she liked. So she handled that. Although
that's one of the things for you to worry about.
First AC. We did bring along a second AC who I had worked with on a short film that I did with Mandy June, the producer, and we loved her. And so we had her come on to our so that's how it works, right? We love this woman. She's amazing, and she can do anything. So you go, yeah, I know you have people, but guess what? We know her, and she can do anything, and you're going to love her. So in that way, you want to connect, right? And we're still at that point where we are, like, we're still trying to get women wherever we can. Like, that's
right.
We tried to really, keep that integrity, because women need opportunities, right? Especially in the camera department. So the camera department sort of gets handled by the DP, even though we have to sort of okay and approve and hire everybody. She generally picks her team. And then for me, I pick hair and makeup, wardrobe, production design, and who else? Gosh, catering.
Well, you got to feed your people.
So Mandy June knew a bunch of people in all of the. She's the one who she started finding crew members for me to meet with, right? So I met with wardrobe people, and I picked the one that, I had Zoom meetings with everybody, and I was like, oh, it's her. She's the one. And again, we picked a woman who just had a great personality, was very confident, and she also had done movies at our budget level, and she had great examples of her work, and she just had a good vibe, and she got me. Like, it really was finding my tribe, right? Like, it was, I told her everything, the background of the movie and what I wanted with the experience, which was, I get to make my first feature film, and I want to enjoy every second. So if you're ready, I don't believe that there are problems. I think there's solutions for every problem. Every obstacle is a blessing. That's how we're going to handle this. We're going to do this right. We're going to do it on time and on budget, but we're going to have a blast. And that's the energy that I would require. And she was like, sold.
You're like, I'm not Stanley Kubrick. Yeah. I'm not gonna do 127 takes.
Well, and you talk about that. That was the interesting thing too, that I discovered what I knew. It was that weird thing where, like, I'm having a meeting with a wardrobe woman, and one woman I could kind of tell just wasn't right for the part, and we had a very not awkward, but it was a harder meeting. And then when I met with her, I could tell she was a professional, and then all this stuff comes out, like, she's telling me about looks and ideas that she has for the characters already, right, at our first meeting. Okay. And then...
Same thing, she had a book, or she had a slideshow?
Yeah, she had like looks and ideas. And then, of course, I'm like, oh, and now I'm riffing on her ideas, because I know more than this is what I love about directing, right? I have these things in my head, but I haven't put them to language yet. And then she comes along and she starts talking wardrobe with me. And all of a sudden, I know exactly who these people are. I know exactly how they dress. I know, and I can give her, getting to communicate that with somebody in play and have that grow organically between the two of us as we share ideas. It's like that next level. Right now, the script gets released and now she's going to build the look of what they're wearing and how that informs their personality. And it was the same thing with production design, right? That was the craziest, most fun part. We had a killer production designer on this movie. I mean, this girl was crazy talented. I cannot believe what she did. And she was so great at she would go shop and take pictures and show me things. And she's like, so, Mountain Lodge, are you thinking like this? And she'd show me these really kitschy, hunting lodge kind of things. And then she'd show me this other stuff. And I'm like, no, this is more like glamping, hipster. She's a Gwyneth Paltrow wannabe in the woods, not so much a Bob Newhart show. She wouldn't take her family and friends to a place that looks like that. It's not that hipster. It's more Gwyneth Paltrow hipster. So it was really fun to, you have these meetings about the world and it all starts to come into shape. And there's nothing more exciting than having a production designer or wardrobe person or hair makeup person or anybody who goes, well, I was thinking this, and they show you a picture and it is exactly what you've had in your lookbook or what you have in your head. It's really trippy. And this is the other thing I did that really helped me as I was preparing is I did a Pinterest page. This helped for I did a Pinterest page of the movie, and then I do cast. So I had a whole casting page, so the casting director could look at that and look at sort of the prototypes, the ideas I had for different characters, which helps her know, oh, this is about the age range. These are the looks, these are the types of personalities that she thinks could play these parts. And then. I did that for every character. And then, of course, those characters have looks and ideas for their, just wardrobe and stuff for them. And then also production design. I have ideas for the wedding and I have ideas for the, the wine and cheese tasting scene. And I have ideas for this. So that was a great, great tool to be able to not have to communicate what's in my head, but just be and here's the Pinterest page.
Were there any first timers? Did you find anybody on the thing that you were sort of giving them their first shot at doing stuff in a feature? Or did you set it up that you were the only first timer?
I know, right? I don't think, well, actually, I think maybe the production designer, this might have been her first feature. I'm not sure. Okay. I know she had done television. I don't know if it was her first feature though. But she crushed it. But I don't know. The sound mixer might have been his first feature because he was fairly new at sound. And I met him doing sound on my short.
Okay.
Oh my God. He did the thing that was it was unthinkable. So Mandy June was trying to hire sound guys and it was a little tricky, because again, you're asking somebody to come camp in the woods, right? And we have a cast of 10 people. There were so many scenes that had 10 people, right? So we have this much budget, and it's a giant job, really. And
yeah, and he knows that you're not going to have 10 deluxe mics that are going to be on for each person.
But so all these other sound people were well, first, they'd either be no can do. It's impossible, right? You have to hire 3 of us. Or, they would be no, I can do it, but it's going to cost you this, and I need another guy, blah, blah, blah. And Nate was I can do it. And we were we've asked 6 other sound people, and they've all said no, and I'm pretty sure this is your first feature. Are you sure? He's yeah, I can do it. And then he explained how he was going to do it. And he explained that we were going to have to rent some equipment, blah, 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 blah. He laid out his plan, but he was I can do it. And we were fingers crossed, great. And by God, he did. And let me tell you, with the exception of having to wait for sound a couple of times while he would move mics from one actor to another, the sound on that movie is pristine. He did such a good job, and he did what no other sound person could do. I texted him the other day as I was watching. I was like, you are my sound guy for life. I cannot believe what you pulled off. It was hugely ambitious, and he was so calm and so effective, and just, he was incredible. So that was another guy that I, had worked with before, and I liked his energy, man. He just showed up with such good energy. And the fact that then he also did a great job, I would work with him on anything. But
so he was like your one-man sound department? Like he did all of
it. He was the only guy doing the sound. It was unbelievable. Yeah. And then, but the most important, really, after your DP, these are all the department heads, right? And they all have their jobs to do, and you want to make sure that they're going to be able to do their jobs. But the really, really big one was my first AD.
Oh, yeah. That's your right hand.
Yes. And I have worked with many, and they really are your saving grace. But I wasn't, there was nobody that I knew that was available. So Mandy had worked with this guy, Jeff Dubray, and she just swore by him. And I was like, I met with him over Zoom, and I was like, you seem great. And he had worked on, oh God, that's terrible that I don't remember the name of the movie. Oh, yes, it was Minari. He did Minari.
Oh, okay.
So he had just come off this like really successful indie feature that was a crazy thing for him to schedule in really hard circumstances. And he's that guy. He's just done a bunch of, you have no money, but you're passionate, and I love the script, and I love the director, and I love the project. Let's do it. I mean, he's afraid of nothing. And he's also he was a great fit for me because he is so chill.
That's what you want.
Well, oddly, it's really not what you want. I mean, no, but here's why. The first AD, no, he was great. I'm not criticizing him at all. I'm just saying that a lot of first ADs, it really is their job to rip some heads, right?
Oh, right. So you can be.
I'm the good cop
standing back, and they can be the one yelling.
Yeah, he's the one who has to make things happen and really like lock it down. And we didn't have a.
Have you ever had that job? And you shadowed. Have you ever been a first AD or second AD?
No, because it's a totally specific and separate skill set.
Okay. Okay, so it's not like a work your way up thing.
Not at all.
Like you start a second, then you get first, and then you get to the big chair.
Now, there's plenty of people who are capable of directing and who do become directors after being first ADs or second ADs, but the actual job is not the same thing at all. Second ADs are helpful in communicating between what's happening on set and different departments, and also getting the cast to and from set. So second ADs will be the ones who are like, so-and-so's in makeup and hair, so-and-so's a wardrobe, we're miking so-and-so, like they, are generally, but we had a second AD, but sometimes he was off doing some other things. So Jeff really had to do a lot with like very little help. and it was really tricky because we were all spread out over this camp, but he was really, really good. I mean, he taught me so much, and that was the best part too, is he had worked with first-time feature directors. So he was very helpful in, if I was getting upset about something or if I was worrying about something, I could go to him and be like, am I being irrational? Like, is this a problem or not? And he would say, like, no, this is good. you should be upset about this, or like, nope, this is how it should look, and you're doing fine. Don't freak out. This is exactly how it always happened. Like, he would just comfort me the whole way and made me feel great. And he also, made it happen. Like, the movie happened. He was so good at scheduling. Oh, so that's what the first AD does.
Okay.
They schedule everything, which means they're the ones that say, these actors are going to work on these days, and then this actor has this day off, et cetera, et cetera. So then when you're like, hey, that scene? I want to reshoot that scene, or I want to add some shots or whatever. Do we have time in the schedule? And he's the one, who goes back and goes, yes, I left extra time on this day so we could put them then. Oh, that's their day off. So now we have to switch this so that they can still have their day off. And he has to understand everything about union rates and hours.
Right.
And there's a certain, actors can only work, and really everybody, but you have to have a certain amount of turnaround. So if an actor works until 1 a.m, then you can't have them until a certain time on the next day. I mean, he, like the Jenga puzzle that is a movie that he has to understand, it's practically math. I mean, and he is so good at it and so relaxed about the whole thing that, to be honest, I was the one who was like, really? Are we really okay? Because you seem really relaxed, and this is a very big thing, I've never met anybody who's more chill than me. So it threw me at first, but no, he was so great. I couldn't have done it without him. It's just incredible.
All right. So then does he have a team then too?
Well, his team, he talks with Mandy June, who is really the producer on set, who, she's the one who if we break a light or if we need a lens swap or whatever, she's the one who then manages getting that stuff done. So Jeff would go to her and discuss schedule. And if we're bringing in a new first AC, there were, he would talk to her, but really he and Josh, who were the first and second assistant directors, would, they were the team. They would put out the call sheet for the next day to alert people of changes. Josh would take over if Jeff needed to do something to prep or go off and do something. Josh would take over for a couple times what the first AD does on set is he does the one, quiet everybody, rolling, everybody quiet, and then the director says action.
Okay, did you say action?
I did say action.
Did you? Okay, I'll say a lot of directors, they have their own style of how they want to do it. You actually did the traditional.
I did. It's just what I've learned, and it's I don't know. I always make my days, so I'm not gonna fix it if it ain't broke. Although I've heard
Sure.
I've heard people say how much extra time to say all those words,
Oh, I wasn't thinking about that way. I was thinking, I read about Clint Eastwood, how because he came up during the time of Westerns, they had horses all the time, and the horses were also actors, and they had learned that when someone yells action, they go. And so a lot of times they had to not say it to do that. And so he learned, just like horses, sometimes actors need to be soothed into too. So he stopped saying action when he became a director, and he would just go, all right, camera's rolling. So yeah, whenever you're ready. And he would just sort of sit back and it was going, and it would allow the actors to sort of go, and he still does. I mean, he's still directing now, and that's his style. And I've always thought that was interesting because I always think of it as, all right, you're running and going and action, to try and get that intensity right at the start. I was just curious what your philosophy was.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I saw a director, one of the first directors that I ever watched, who did not say action. He just said go.
Okay.
And, it was fine. It was fine. And I thought, oh, that's a cool thing. Maybe I'll try that. And then I didn't find that people responded to that very well. I mean, because there's something about action. It's almost because it's the thing that everybody says that it's it's a cue that now it's your time and you don't have to think about it. You're not really listening to the literal word anymore. It's you hear that thing and now you go off into your trance state. And if you're going to say something different, it's a little bit oh, what was that? Oh, right. That means action. I have found that it's an extra layer of translation because now that we've all agreed it's just action, cut, action, cut, action, cut, we can just we don't have to reinvent the wheel and everybody's used to it. So that was my experience anyway. That's the thing too, what Jeff does is he's in the walkie and he's talking to everybody on set. So when he's saying rolling into the thing, he's talking to everybody all around, locking down the set, making sure everybody knows we're rolling so no one's starting a car, having a water balloon fight, everybody knows what's going on. And then when we say cut, now we've cut, now you can bring that craft services table in because you're not going to be ruining the shot, stuff like that.
And you did cut. So you did traditional.
I
you
did
action and then cut.
I did. Again, it was just I'm the worst though, because I would actually forget to say cut, and I would run in and start. Sometimes I don't.
Would you keep rolling?
I would, because.
Okay, because I know digital, that's a different thing. You can just let it run.
Sometimes I did that, and then it turned out that I was a jackass because I just let it roll, and it was a dumb move, and I should have just cut. So there's plenty of that.
Because it makes it harder for the editing.
It does
later.
make it harder for the editor, but sometimes it's like I don't want to lose the flow. I don't want to go through the whole and cut, reset. I don't want to give the DP and the whole gaffing team a chance to relight, and so you just go. Hang on. And if you just want to adjust one thing of a performance, and also it keeps that flow, right? They're still acting, right? They're not supposed to jump out of character. They're in the scene. I run in and say something, okay, go, yeah, okay. And then I go back and action, right? And they will, do a pickup. And then you do every shot you have to slate a shot. Which is I always would forget the slate on every short film I ever did. Thank God.
Whose responsibility is
weirdly,
slating?
It's the first AC or the second AC will do the slate. Sometimes, though, who brings the slate? That's the question.
Oh.
It's a weird thing where usually it's the sound person, but sometimes it's the camera people. It's a weird. Some people have a slate thing on their phone, which I'm like, oh God.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
We used a electronic iPhone slate thing for my last short film. Okay, I guess that's how we're doing it.
Yeah, when I did my short, I did the action and cut as well. I thought about that, and I tried to do the Clint Eastwood thing, and you're right, it just doesn't. I couldn't get it to work because the people were just like, "Are we going, or is it roll?" I'd be like, "Oh, okay." So you kind of the people need to know when the camera's actually going. And I'm like, "Oh, right, all right." Now I see why people say action.
But
and cut.
I do understand the impulse of it, and I will say it differently based on the scene. So there were,
and when I'm directing audio, it's different too because it's rolling all the time, so you don't have to stop and start anything. So that's whenever you're ready works.
Right.
So I can just do it. I can sit back and I know I can just cut out all the silence.
I played around with the timing and I think I told you right before that big scene. I went up to the actors and I said fuck these people. We don't care about these people, right? Because I wanted to just have them not give a crap what anybody thought of them in that moment. And then another thing that I would do if I was, and this is just but I was directing a pretty a dramatic scene, and so we had it all set up everybody ready, camera ready, and then I went in and I put my hands on the actors, on their backs, and just I just let them know that I was there, and we just took 3 deep breaths, and then I walked out and I waited a little longer, and I was action. And they locked in. I mean, it was a bold choice because I just wasted everybody's time, but what it did was because I disturbed the rhythm of it, and I let them know, this is your scene. We're going to go on your time when you're ready, and just sort of taking that minute of this is your thing. You letting them know that I was waiting and it was their choice to drop in, and when they were ready, they could do it. It just kind of locked them in so they could also let go of their nerves. That's just another version of fuck these people.
So I guess without spoiling, the first shot, then your first day, first shot, where in the movie is it?
Oh my God. So our first scenes were so not good. I mean, they were, no, they're great.
Well, am I jumping the gun?
No.
I mean, the team is assembled at this point, right? I don't
no, it's all great. It's nobody's fault or anything. It's just, you can tell that we're...
No, I just want to make sure that I'm not messing up your storytelling in terms of getting us to the movie.
Right.
Now...
No, I think that's pretty much it. For us, then there was catering, but how you're going to feed people. That's a huge part of it. Do you want to know what happened for me?
Okay. Let's talk. Yeah, no, let's talk about food.
Okay, well,
then. I'm always happy to talk about food.
It's not that big of a thing. We didn't have a lot of money. We had
It's hard, but Army marches on its stomach. Like, you got to feed your people. So, like, what? So how is this explained to you that you're responsible for the food?
Look, I have been on many sets and I know that you can have a low budget anything, but you cannot skimp on feeding people. Everyone will be miserable and they will be angry and they will hate every second of that job. Whereas if you feed people well, then they're like, look at me, I'm living like a queen, right? It's a weird psychology thing, but if there's more food than you can even eat, you feel like you're being taken care of, right? And once again, we have everybody stranded up in the woods. It's not like there's a restaurant they can go to that's less than a 45-minute drive, So we had this really weird thing where we not only had to feed people for the hours they were working, we had to feed them for the hours that they weren't, because they were traveling up to the mountains and staying at a camp with us. We had to feed people 3 times a day. And then on days that we were shooting, we had this weird thing where we would have breakfast for life breakfast, but then we would have breakfast, quote unquote, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, because that was the first meal of the day for the 12 hours of shooting. And so I had no idea how insanely difficult this was going to be for the caterers when I asked my sister if she wanted to come and cook for 50 people up at a camp. God bless.
For how many weeks?
2 weeks. And now, God, because we shot for 17 days, but the first 2 days were at my house. So we could run to, the grocery store. We could go get sandwiches and food for people and just have it there. Nobody had.
You were still within civilization.
Yeah, nobody had to cook. We just ran and picked up food for everybody and brought it back. But then when we were in the mountains, it was them. They had to cook for 50 people. And my sister had worked in she ran a hospital. She ran a kitchen. I think she did she did elementary school stuff. So she had experience with cooking for large numbers of people. And one of my best friends from high school, dearest friend, also cooked at a school. So I was like, the two of you, any interest in working on a movie for 2 weeks? And they were like, hell yes. And so they got together and worked out a menu and everything and talked about ideas. And then my sister brought her best friend from San Antonio, and he brought his daughter, and then my niece came. It was a total family affair. It was.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like you're opening a restaurant.
It was unbelievable. And it was so hard. And I was like, oh my God, my sister's going to kill me. Oh my God, my sister's going to hate me. Oh my God, my sister's never going to talk to me again. And and at the end of it, she was like, I would do it again. And I was like, oh, so would I. I mean, we had so much fun. It was so hard. It nearly killed us. And it was such a blast. But I can never repay her for that. And my other sister was taking care of my children, by the way, because my husband and I were up doing a movie for 2 weeks in the woods. Someone had to take care of my kids, So my other sister and my niece are taking care of my children while we're off being filmmakers. I mean, it was crazy. We were so lucky.
Takes a village.
It definitely took a village.
So did she have to then get everyone's dietary requirements and or so they have to get what do you eat, what don't you eat, all that kind of stuff?
Every meal had meat, vegan, and then dairy free and gluten free. So every meal had to have all 4 of those options, which was pretty, we had all of it. Every possible dietary restriction you could ever imagine. We had all of it. And then
and people's favorite snacks then too, because you need to have your snack table.
Yep. You had to have all they made them too. They made these great, what are they called? They're those Texas, I'll have to ask my sister. Oh God, they're these great pastries. They were amazing. Their food was so good. When she left, she left and she goes back home to Texas, and I was like, I'll never eat that good again. Can you please just send me a couple of your recipes? Oh my God. Oh, their food was so good. I was in such good shape. I loved it. Yeah, anyway, so that was how we had to figure that out too, because you got to feed everybody.
So then obviously the camp was closed.
Yep.
Then did you designate this is a shooting area and this is a living area? These cabins are sets and these cabins are where you live.
We had this really great, it was this kooky thing. It was a decision that we made, but it worked because the actual interior of the cabins that were up there, they weren't, I don't know, they were bunk beds, like Boy Scouts would stay there, right? It wasn't like, it didn't feel super, like if you were having an upscale wedding, it didn't feel like the character would have her people live there, stay there. But what they had were these two old-timey log cabins that were completely empty inside, but had 3 walls and then no window on this front part. So it was like an empty sort of cabin set. And it was perfect because, again, COVID, right? These are the only quote unquote interiors that we have, but there were windows everywhere. So it was completely ventilated, and we had somebody build us a dummy wall. So what my brilliant set designer did is she had this one cabin that she was able to design for 4 different looks by moving the wall and then just switching out the set dressing.
Rearranging.
Yeah. She was unbelievable. And so then she, who was helping her was my mom's best friend, a woman who was like my junior high drill team instructor. She came up and volunteered to work on the movie for a couple weeks, and she was a genius and so helpful. Like, it was so crazy how it just all unfolded. I had so many, but again, this was my hurrah. This was my, I don't know if I'm ever going to get to do this again. So come on, let's have a ball. Let's make a movie. And we did it.
Okay. So when you're shooting, are you doing everything handheld? Are you locked off?
We do all of it.
Rolling on.
We make those decisions based.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is that a DP thing? Like he says, these are the one I want. I want tracks. I don't know what that's called. Where you are rolling along.
That's a dolly. Yeah, a dolly track.
A dolly. Okay.
We didn't have that kind of money for like a big dolly track. We didn't ever lay down track. And with the woods and stuff, we did something that was more like a slider. It was like you set up this, you set something up and then there's a rail that the camera can slide on. It's only about 10 feet. We use that quite a bit. Mostly that for the interiors. For the more emotional scenes, we did do handheld.
Okay. And that's your DP doing that? Or
no,
that's
she did that. She has really, really good instincts. And so for her, it's just she likes to be the one shooting, which for us was perfect because budget-wise, we didn't really have... There are a lot of DPs that are like, I'm a great DP, but you need a camera operator, and then I'm going to talk through the headset. And actually, Sev, I feel like, and I think she would say this too, she worked way better when she could just hold the camera. And then we would rehearse a shot and then she would just do it. And then she was really good at just capturing things too. Like there's this great group scene where one of their old college friends comes in and, I didn't really have specific coverage. I was like, I want this to feel like you're a guest at the wedding. So I want you to look at the action and catch it, so it's really great because, people are walking in front of the camera and she's moving around with, looking down at the table, looking up. Like it was really cool the way that she did it. So it depended on the scene and the shot.
Sure.
We did driving shots, where the camera's inside the car. And then we had one shot where there's camera mounted on the hood of the car. And I hate driving stuff, and I don't know why. I have written it into every movie I've ever done. It is the worst. It takes 10 times as long as you think it's going to take, and it's so hard because you're always cramped in the trunk of a car looking at a little monitor, or you're behind in a follow car and your monitor stops working. And so you're like, I don't know, does it look good? I can't see it. I mean, it's just the worst. But, it when you have a low budget movie with 2 locations, it can help to make the world feel bigger.
So when you're not in the car, when you're like in a traditional sort of, you have the set, you're on there, are you mostly watching sort of over the camera's shoulder to see the performance? Or are you watching on the monitor to see what it's capturing? Or does it just depend on the moment?
9 times out of 10, you're at the monitor. It's just a more true, you need to be able to look at it like that. Because ultimately, even though... you can, if you're looking at their faces, now some directors are different, but for me, I feel like it's just different. Looking at their faces and seeing what they're doing versus how it's reading on camera, it's very important that you're looking at the monitor, to me. There were times, though, where it was too crowded and we didn't have a monitor, or I just didn't want to we couldn't put the monitor any place that was close enough, and I needed to be closer. There were times if we were doing a Steadicam thing, it's moving too much. There's no way to have that monitor, so I had to walk behind the camera while we're backing up watching these things, So yeah, it kind of does depend, but for the most part, yeah, there's a monitor and they have it. And there were times, oh my God, I really was in the shape of my life because especially when we were doing, there's a fun in games, like a montage of everybody literally playing all these great games. And there's 17, 20 people all like, laughing and doing stuff. And I'd have to run. My monitor had to be way, way back because it was this really big shot. So I would go and look at the monitor and then I would run down and I would direct like this people here and these group over here and this group over here and that group over there. And then I would run back to the monitor. And it would be like up a hill and then I'd get to the top of the hill and I'd be like, action. And then they would do it. And then I'd, hold and run. I mean, it was crazy.
So you didn't have the bullhorn?
Oh, a bullhorn would have been...
Everyone's happy. Okay, go.
That would have been great. We did not have a bullhorn. We didn't even think of it. I lost my voice probably halfway through the movie, but I managed somehow.
So as you have people doing all this stuff, who then is taking care of you? Like, do you have someone like to make sure that you're drinking and eating and, that you're keeping your energy up?
Yes. Everybody on that set was so lovely. The script supervisor was very good about that, Marina. She was great. And she's sort of my other right-hand man. Like, the first AD is communicating with all of the departments for me. The script supervisor is the one who's right next to me, who is watching all the shots and writing them down. So when I see something, a performance, a take, a joke, that I'm like, oh yes, that's what I want, I circle the monitor and give her a thumbs up or whatever. Like, I let her know I want to use the first half of take 2 and the last half of take 3, right? Or I go, that's the ending. If I see things, I let her know. She writes that all down. She writes down like this take, is blown halfway through because of an airplane. Or she writes all the details of everything that happens so that she gives it to the editor. And as the editor's putting the footage together, so if I do one of those jackass things where I'm like, let's just roll for 10 minutes, and do a bunch of pickup shots, she's the one who tells the editor, if you're looking for the pickup shot of the hot coffee that lands on the ground, here's where it lives. It's in that 7-minute take.
So she's writing she's writing time codes down at 5:28:04. That's when
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, she helps keep a track of what is shot where. And she also does the thing where I, am done with something and I'm done. And she goes, hey, you never got a close-up of this, or you never got this line on camera. And she would say, do you want it? And I'd either in that moment go, nope, I'm never going to use it. Not important. And we would move on. Or I would go, you know what? Thank you. I want to get that, So if I forgot something, or if there was just something that I hadn't thought of, or, she was great because she would offer up, what about this? What about that? And I'd either say yes or no, but she has my back in that way. And there were times too, there were times when I would, come up with a shot thing, and sometimes the DP would be like, no, that crosses the line. And I'm like, I don't think so. And, Marina would either be like, yeah, no, it definitely crosses the line. Or she would say, no, you're fine. If you do this, you're fine. And so it was you have a team of people who are protecting you and helping you and offering their opinions and stuff.
And that's where we're going to stop the conversation for today. If you'd like to hear more of Mandy's voice, she's got her very own podcast. It's called The Mand Cave, hosted in collaboration with her friend, Mandy Kaplan. You'll find it wherever the finest podcasts are found. Thanks so much for listening. This has been the next chapter in the Curiosity Codex, but there are still many pages left to decipher. We're part of the True Story FM family of podcasts. Find out more about us at truestory.fm. Our theme music is Intrusion by Severed Personality, aka Kevin MacLeod. The voice of the Codex is Vicky Hall. Find her on the web at vickyhall.squarespace.com. And my name is Kyle Olson.
The Codex is closed. For now.